Good day, everyone. This is Rita Choi, founder of Asia HRM. Asia HRM is a human resources community for Asia, connecting qualified coach, focusing on coaching and leadership. We help organizations build high-performing teams. We are an advocate for coaching. Therefore, we have a coaching platform called Coaching Engage Plus, connecting qualified coaches and their potential clients. We also have AI augmented coaching. If you want to know more about services, just let us know. Today is a very special day because it's a start of a new series on sustainability in business. Have you ever heard of sustainability? I'm sure that this is quite a hot topic, right? How much do you know about it? Is it something very important to us? Is it about planet, people, and profit? In this series, you'll be able to get a basic understanding of what sustainability is about. It's about environment, social, and governance. Hopefully, towards the end of the series, you're able to have good idea of that and able to get some and are able to apply what you have learned in your workplace and even in your personal life. Let me introduce to you the topic for today. The topic for today is sustainability in business, from risk to competitive edge. Our speaker is Tan Swie Han, head of Shared Leadership Team Coaching Academy, Leadership in Motion, Singapore. I know that Swie Han is going to give a very good introduction of herself, so let me save her introduction here. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to him, and then let him start his presentation. And same as usual, we will have the presentation followed by Q&A.
Thank you very much, Rita, for the introduction. Welcome everyone who are listening, watching this. Thanks for your taking time out to listen or to learn about sustainability, especially sustainability in business. Just a quick introduction. Yes, I'm the head of the Shared Leadership Academy. I'm also a Shared Leadership and Sustainability Team Coach. I'm accredited with a credential coach with ICF as an MCC, and also in the team coaching portion part of it, the advanced certification in team coaching, a coach supervisor, mentor coach. I authored 2 books, and right now I'm writing my 3rd book, and my 3rd book will be on sustainability. So it is a privilege, it's an honor to be here. So let me jump into it. On this page, if you'd like to link in with me or like to contact me, my email and my QR code for the linking is there. This is a climate weather chart, temperature change. You can see the curve. And if you look at it, from 1850s to probably about 1940s, like World War II period, it is more or less same, flat, right? Of course, there will be fluctuations, but then from 1950s, 1960s onwards, it start to climb, right, to today, 2025, right, as where this record is. The question to everyone is, if I say 2024, right, 2 years ago, is significant. Why do you think that is so? I think for a moment, year 2024 is significant. Why do you think it is so? The reason is because 2024 is the hottest in terms of temperature, right, in terms of climate in our history, right, 2024. In climate change, often we reference it to the baseline of 1850s to 1900, right, the baseline. So we often talk about the difference, right? So in 2024, the difference is 1.55 degrees. Now, why is 1.55 degrees significant? It is significant because in 2015, at the United Nations, there was a Paris Agreement where the goal, right, collectively 190 over countries come together to agree on to keep the temperature change to below 2 degrees. and to pursue efforts to limit to 1.5 degrees. But in 2024, we are already 1.55 degrees, right? We have already breached that lower limit.
Swee Heng, sorry, because I was advised that the screen is frozen. They can't see your slides. So maybe I was thinking if maybe I upload my slide and let you continue. Is that okay?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Here, right?
Yep. Right. So
Okay.
so thanks, Rita, for jumping in.
Yeah.
So we're talking about why 2024 is significant is because the temperature change was 1.55 degrees, right? Compared to what was a goal. The goal in 2015 at the United Nations Paris Agreement was to keep the temperature change to 2 degrees centigrade and pursue efforts to limit to 1.5. And when they set up the 1.5 degrees, right, bear in mind it was 2015. And in 2015, the temperature at that point in time, right, the temperature change at that point in time was 1.1. And guess what? In 9 years, right, less than 10 years, we have already went into 1.55 degrees. So if this is a trajectory, the goal of 2 degrees centigrade is actually a challenge, right? Because 2 degrees centigrade, we are talking about by the year 2100, right? By the end of this century. So you can see that the temperature change is actually fast. It's actually accelerating pretty fast. Next. How do we get here? If you think about the past 3 industrial revolutions, we have the mechanization, we're talking about the steam power, followed by electricity, and the third industrial revolution was the digital. All these are part of it. We have to change, right, from an agrarian society, right, meaning agriculture based, to an industrialization, right, to industrial cities and societies. People come to form towns, people come together to form cities. So you get from agrarian to urbanization, right? You can see. And as part of the reasons, let's look at the next slide. As part of the reason, the population also increases, right? When people come together, you can see there's a lot of people coming together, working together, living together. Then that also gives rise to the rising population. So it kind of fall in line. You can look at the curve, starting from somewhere in 1940s onwards. Again, the climb happens, right? So there is a correlation between the population growth as well as the industrial revolution. And when population increases, there's more consumption, there's more usage, right? So we go to the next slide. And this fall into the GDP growth. GDP, what is GDP? All of us probably will know that GDP is computed based on the sum total of goods and services consumed by a country. Obviously, it's that when the population increases, then GDP growth will also increase. And we need the GDP growth, right? Because that is also to create jobs for the rising populations, right? You need jobs, right, in order for families and so on, for their life, to maintain their livelihood. So it kind of goes together. And the population growth, especially you can see the curve in Asia, right? Asia is probably the top in terms of population growth, followed by Africa. Next. Then the question is, where all of us are in business, we often think of economic growth. We think of business growth. The question is is economic growth the sole focus of businesses? And we were all, for many of us who might be in business schools, we have been in that era whereby very much influenced by economists, people like Milton Friedman. In 1970, he said, the social responsibility of business is to increase its profits, right? The sole responsibility of business is to increase its profits. Someone else said, the business of business is business. I think down here we can see that there's an assumption, right? The assumption is that the natural systems, right, the resources and so on are infinite, right? So that's why there was no mention about that. All you care about as a business is to grow, right? Grow your profits, and all this will contribute to the GDP. And this has been probably the mindset of businesses for a long time, especially where universities and business schools are teaching this, right? So that form the mindset. I myself, I've been working for 31 years in three large organizations before I transited to become a coach 15 years ago. When I was in my leadership role, including head of the HR for Asia Pacific, all I was thinking about was helping the company grow. It's all about revenue. It's all about profit. And of course, being a human resource person, it is also about bringing the right talents, right? Having keeping a very good workforce in order to contribute to the performance. And the performance basically is about the profit. So it is all about the two P's, right? Performance and people, right? And that is my preoccupation, I must admit, as a HR person, right? Those days. But today, when I think about it, I think that's probably a bit too short-sighted, right? Because the assumption natural systems are infinite, right? You can keep using it so long as you are able to produce. Next slide. So the current economic model focusing on profit and growth is not sustainable. Simple reason is that we are over-consuming and we're not allowing time for the earth to renew, right? So it's like our budget. When you over-consume the budget and then you don't have enough time to replenish your budget, it will be broken, right? It's a time bomb. It's a matter of time that it will happen. So our current economic model certainly cannot be sustained. Next. Right. So with the increase in industrialization, production, there's carbon emission, right? Carbon, the other emissions, that creates a greenhouse effect, right? The greenhouse effect is important because it keeps the earth warm, but then when it exceeded that level, it is when the effect is much greater, right? That's where global warming takes place. And when the climate warms up, it creates a host of problems, right? You have heat waves, or you have drought, you have flood, you have more frequent and intense monsoon and typhoon, and sea level rise. These are very much physics. For example, why is there more frequent and intense monsoon and typhoon? When the earth get heated up, there is you get that evaporation. A lot more moisture will be in the clouds, and that kind of form bigger clouds that when it rains or when there's a monsoon, there's a downpour, right? Which is the volume part of it. Sea level rise is the same thing. You think about iceberg melting. I think that's one part of it. But when the other part of it is when the ocean warms up, water expands. And when water expands, the sea level rise, right? So these are all the natural effects from climate warming. Next. What about the nature's ecosystems? The nature ecosystem, we talk about it is fast depleting and not renewing fast enough, right? I kind of mentioned that. So one good example is deforestation, where you deforest a place and then you build on it an urban city or some concrete buildings. Then what you takes time to replace, right? Because when you deforest, the forests are meant to absorb carbon, right? Through a process called photosynthesis, right? Absorbing carbon to give out oxygen. So when you remove that ability to absorb more carbon, then the CO2 will then go to the atmosphere, right? So the nature's ecosystem needs time to renew, but it is not given the chance to renew fast enough. Next. So what are some of the nature's ecosystem services? The earth provides provisioning, right? Resources, materials, food, water, energy. So all the things that we do, we make use of, right? A lot of resources are from the ground, from the earth, from the forest, from the trees. That creates also the materials, supporting functions, right? The space for wildlife. Wildlife needs space, healthy soil, photosynthesis. There's a regulating functions, clean air, water, right? Water, you get clean water through filtration. Carbon storage, I mentioned about the forest. Forests are one part of the ecosystem. Ocean is also a very big carbon storage area. Flood management, there's also the cultural part of it, right? We kind of enjoy nature for the recreation, for inspiration, for well-being, right? So these are some of the nature's ecosystem services. Next. So there is a interrelationship between climate warming and the ecosystem, and one acting on the other, right? That's what's happened right now. Next. So if I ask everyone to imagine, right? Imagine you own a seafood restaurant. Your restaurant is situated at the coast, overlooking the beautiful sea. How will climate change impact your business? Right? Just think for a moment, right? If you are a seafood restaurant owner, climate change might seem far away, but let's imagine you are owning such a property, right, making good business, getting people to come to you, and having a flourishing business. Perhaps you're also thinking about expanding your business, right? But then if you think about the climate change, there's going to be quite a fair bit of, it can have a fair bit of impact. Right, next. And now we are talking about another industrial revolution that's happening right now before our eyes. That's artificial intelligence. One part about artificial intelligence is that you need data centers. What you see in the building is a building, right? On the picture, it's a building of a data center. So the data center is not a small room. It is a huge building. First of all, it requires concrete, right? It's built from concrete, and concrete creates a lot of carbon, right? Carbon dioxide. The other part is that to run a data center, you need a lot of water. So all this will consume energy. So there's a reason why data centers is going to create even greater global warming, right? If we don't manage it. Next. Right. If we go back, this has been being talked about at the United Nations. So the World Commission on Environment and Development 40 years ago, in 1987, defined sustainable development as this, right? That meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. If I pause for a while, look at it, that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. I think this is one of the most beautiful way of defining sustainable development. The thing is that current generation, we are probably compromising the ability of our future generations to meet their own needs, right? Our children, our children's future generations. I think they will be in much difficulty in terms of a livable planet if we in these generations exceeds the needs of, if our present generation compromise their needs by over consuming our needs without taking care of the planet. Next. So I mentioned about the Paris Agreement. Right, so keeping global average temperature below 2 degrees centigrade. right, the 1.5 degrees centigrade, I think we are probably about to bust it, right? Although, of course, 2024 is just 1 year. We are talking about average temperature, but then I think we are at a new normal. Next. But I'm sure some of the audience here when we're saying, wow, 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, actually is a 0.5 degrees. It's the same as in Singapore, you say 30 degrees and 30.5 degrees. What is 0.5 degrees? What is the difference? All right, let's watch this video to see what a 0.5 degrees means.
The goal seems to be to limit warming.
When we talk about climate change, there's one number that comes up a lot.
The goal seems to be to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
1.5 degrees Celsius.
1.5 degrees.
It may sound arbitrary, but it's not. Every 1/10 of a degree matters. Here's why. In 2015, 193 parties signed the Paris Agreement. In doing so, they agreed to pursue efforts to limit the average global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius, or 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, above pre-industrial levels. To be clear, our planet is already 1.1 degrees hotter than it was 150 years ago. But most scientists agree that an increase of just 0.4 more degrees will drastically change the world. However, it would continue to be livable. Things do get murky, though, as the projections increase above that. Here's the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees of warming. Sea levels have and will continue to rise. With a 1.5 degree increase, 69 million people will be directly affected by rising seas. 0.5 degrees more, and that number increases to 80 million. At 1.5 degrees warming, about 14% of Earth's population will be exposed to deadly heat waves at least once every 5 years. 0.5 degrees more, and that number jumps to 37%. About 61 million more people would be exposed to severe drought in a 2 degrees Celsius warmer world than at 1.5 degrees warming. If the average temperature increases by 2 degrees, we would lose double the amount of plant and animal species, triple the amount of insect species, and 99% of our coral reefs. We can also expect a substantial increase in the frequency of extreme weather events. Lastly, it's important to remember that these numbers are global averages. Different areas of the world would fare far worse than others. Of course, much damage is already done, but scientists agree that we still have time to minimize the worst of it. That is, only if we keep temperatures from rising higher than 1.5 degrees. So can it be done? Only if we act fast. Scientists say the target can only be met if global emissions are reduced by 45% by 2030 and cut to zero by 2050. It's a lofty goal, but most agree that there is no alternative.
Yep. So there's no alternative. Although it's 0.5 degrees, is look very little, but actually that is huge in terms of the impact on the planet. So the goal is to keep it to net zero by 2050. By net zero, what it means is that what we produce, what we emit out in terms of carbon, and what we remove is equals to zero, right? That's what I mean by net zero by 2050. It is that if we are able to hit net zero by 2050, do we have a fair chance to be achieving or keeping it to 2.2 degrees, right? To keep it to a limit of 2 degrees, right? That's how the climate scientists have kind of studied it and said, yeah, net zero by 2050 is critical. Next. And what are the scenarios? There are many scenarios out there. I point out to you 3 scenarios that come from a research BBVA. They portray three scenarios. One is 1.5 degrees, which we know it is almost zero chance, right? Below 2 degrees, this is what we want to maintain. Yeah, what is what we want to achieve. And then what if not? Then it goes to 2.3 degrees to 3 degrees. So based on current policy and business as usual, right? Means without changing anything, just based on where we are and how we are, what is the probability of success? Next. 1.5 degrees, 0 chance. Below 2 degrees, we have only less than 10% chance, right? 8% chance. And the chance of busting the 2 degrees is actually 80%, right? That is if everything is the same as everything as business as usual, they call it. Right. So we are right now in this space. And then the question will be sustainability in business. So what are the risks to a business if no or little attention is paid to sustainability? Right? What do you think are the risks to a business if no or little attention is paid? Well, let's go to the next slide. Right, the risk to businesses on the left side basically is a cost. You will have higher business costs, materials, the supply chain, mitigation costs, right? Because if you produce, you have to reduce the carbon, right? So if you're high carbon producing business or organizations, you will have to think about how do you reduce that, right? Mitigation, adaptation. So you think about the seafood restaurant just now. The adaptation measures could be about the business is by the sea. You probably need to create a sea wall or some form of a barrier so that when the seawater level rise, it will not destroy or damage your property, right? That's a adaptation cost. So cost of business increases. There's also tax. We heard about carbon tax, insurance. Insurance will certainly be looking at your sustainability measures, and if deemed to be at risk, your insurance fees will go up. Finance costs. If the organization is seeking financing from banks today will be looking at your ESG, will be looking at your sustainability measures, right? And then determine the risk associated with your organizations. So organizations that have a strong sustainability plan and measures will certainly have a lesser interest cost, right? And that will contribute to your finance cost. Income, revenue. If you're not sustainable, you lose market competitiveness. And over time, there will be the declining revenue. So one example of losing market competitiveness will be in terms of tender. When you tender for a large project, the client may be looking at who has more sustainability practices in that company, right? And some of the clients actually ask for sustainability measures that you already have, right? As part of the criteria for the tendering. So if you are not up there, well, not in the game, you'll probably be out of the game, right? So and then you'll lose market competitiveness over time. Reputation, you lose clients, you lose talents, right? I think people do want to work for organizations and businesses that are more sustainable than others, right? You lose suppliers, you lose investors, right? Even investors will also be looking at the long term and looking at your sustainability measures, right? So these are all the risks to businesses that if you are not sustainable, you do not have sustainability measures, right? You're not focusing on sustainability. All this will catch up with the business, right? These are the risks. Next. So the question is for business, how to get there, right? I propose there are 4 stages to go to the top. There are 4 stages in organizations or businesses. At the base will be where businesses think of business as usual. Right, these are the business that are too busy making money, right, maximizing profit, and then they will do minimal to satisfy the stakeholders. The stakeholders can also include their people. So maybe some of the people are asking for some sustainability measures, and then the business will say, yeah, okay, let's do what we can, right? To satisfy the people in the company, or maybe it's a client, right? Whoever the stakeholders, the idea, the mindset is just do minimal, right? And then they may also perceive or see that sustainability is a hindrance, right? And even the threat, it slows the business down, right? It costs more money, so become a hindrance, right? So I think this is probably a conventional thinking, right? At the conventional stage. Then you go up to the second stage, compliance. Today, many countries have actually sustainability regulations under the governance part. There is a follow the law, right? The law requires to do reporting and so on. So the thinking then is, okay, let's be a good corporate citizen. Don't go out of line, right? Just follow what is required. And then you are looking at it from managing the risk of compliance and risk of non-compliance, right? It is basically about taking order, following the order, right? And under this and at this stage, probably the organization or the business might be thinking of sustainability is just a side project. It is a project that needs to be done, and perhaps to be subcontracted out, right? Because the core of the business is not on sustainability, it's on their business. Yeah, so that's the second stage. Third stage. The third stage is gain market advantage, where you see sustainability as with a different lens. You see that actually sustainability helps you to become more efficient. Take, for example, you consume less energy, right? Use more renewable energy. Waste management, right? You turn waste into a byproduct, right? You see that, yeah, actually it can be efficient, and that brings down cost. When cost goes down, profit goes up. You innovate greener products and innovation, you create a new market. You have a new segment. And reputation, right? And the reputation between two companies, one with the reputation for sustainability and the other without, all things being equal, the reputation will help to bring you more business, right? Will give you that competitive edge. Next. Right. Level 3, stage 3 is the idea is focusing on competitive advantage. Stage 4 is whereby the organizations is no longer about competitive advantage, although it is a good byproduct where the company or the organization says sustainability is core to the business, right? It's not a side project, but it's core to the business. It's integral to the purpose and the core values. It's a culture of the organization. But at this stage, sustainability and business cannot be separated. They are integrated. Next. Right, so you can see sustainability become the center, right? At the center of the business, right? And that's where the business starts to be climate resilient. Next. Right, and at the bottom, all things, what mindset is key. Yeah, next. So in the world responding to climate change, right, where are the opportunities for leaders, consultants, and coaches? Yeah, due to time, we don't really have time to hear out what you have in mind. But I think these are questions that listeners and audience can consider, right? Just looking at the 4 stages where a company will go through, right? Starting from conventional, they go compliant to competitive to core. Where are the opportunities, right? For every adversity, there are opportunities, right? There's such a saying. When you see risk, there's also opportunities. So I like, perhaps you can think about this. Yeah, next. Right, it sounds like doom and gloom that we're heading towards climate warming, 2 degrees, right? Yeah, past 1.5 degrees, heading towards 2 degrees. I would think that it is about, yeah, this is happening, right? But there's hope. There's hope, and history has given us examples. One very good example is the ozone example that happened in 1987, right? In 1980s, we also have a climate issue, right? So let's watch this to see how the world, when the world comes together, we are able to solve a difficult problem, right?
That could have devastated life. What if I told you? One global treaty stopped a disaster that could have devastated life on Earth. This is the story of how the Montreal Protocol saved the world. And it's one of those rare moments in history. When nearly 200 countries agreed to phase out a harmful chemical, together, for the planet. In the 1980s, scientists discovered a giant hole in the ozone layer over Antarctica. Earth's sunscreen, the ozone, was vanishing fast. And it blocks harmful ultraviolet rays. Without it, life on Earth would be in serious danger. Chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, were invented in the 1920s. They were a safe, non-toxic alternative to earlier refrigerants like ammonia and sulfur dioxide, which were dangerous and flammable. Thomas Migley Jr., the inventor, helped bring CFCs into widespread use. In refrigerators, air conditioners, and spray cans. CFCs were seen as perfect, non-toxic, non-flammable, stable, and easy to manufacture. But that same stability was the problem. CFCs drifted high into the atmosphere. There, ultraviolet rays broke them apart and released chlorine atoms, which tore apart ozone molecules. Scientists confirmed the ozone hole using satellite data. It was large, and it was growing. So, what triggered the global response? In 1974, scientists Molina and Rowland warned that CFCs could destroy the ozone layer. Then, in 1985, British scientists discovered a real and massive ozone hole over Antarctica. This confirmed the danger. Public concern surged. Governments acted. And chemical companies began developing safer alternatives. In 1987, in Montreal, Canada, nations came together through the United Nations to form a historic treaty, the Montreal Protocol. Today, CFC use is banned almost everywhere. But in rare cases, like certain life-saving asthma inhalers, they're still allowed, because safe alternatives aren't yet available. Since the treaty, global CFC levels have dropped by more than 95%. The ozone layer is healing, slowly but surely. A 2023 UN report confirms the ozone layer could fully recover by 2040, and by 2066 over Antarctica, the worst affected region. And there's more. Because CFCs are also powerful greenhouse gases, the Montreal Protocol is also helping slow climate change, avoiding up to 0.5 degrees Celsius of global warming by mid-century. Scientists expect full ozone recovery within our lifetime. It's one of the greatest environmental success stories of our time. The Montreal Protocol didn't just protect the ozone layer, it saved the world. Thank you for watching till the end. This is my first YouTube.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. This video will kind of conclude that there's hope that if we can work together at a country level, at the business level, at the individual level, right? We can save the planet, right? We can, right? That is the message to everybody. We can do it together. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sri Heng, for the wonderful session. Thanks for raising awareness on climate change, right? We learned a lot from you, especially about keeping this 1.5%, right? Although it was quite scary that only 8% that we are able to keep the climate below 2%. And there is very high chance, 80% chance that we will make it below between 2.3 to 3%. But you just walk through that there would be the threats for business if they really don't really treat it with high attention, high attention, such as the risk to them would be cost in terms of the cost. They would be costly to their business, and also there'll be impact on their competitive advantage. And then you also went through the 4 stages, right? About the business. That is 4C, right? From conventional to compliant, then compliant to competitive, lastly would be core. But you end with a very positive example of ozone, saying that if we work together, positive things will happen. So I think if we work together, we will be able to stand a higher chance of keeping this at 2%, below 2%. Okay, we have a question from Charles here. So Charles, let me show it here. Okay, so here's Charles' question. Swing, will you be able to see it?
Yep, I
What
can
do
see
you
that.
see as the primary driver for companies? Contrary to popular belief, only 18% of executives cite regulatory pressure as their primary driver for sustainability. Most are driven by competitive advantage and brand value.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, thanks, Charles. I think that's a great comment and question there. I fully agree with the McKinsey Global Survey that at the end of the day, it is not the regulatory requirements; it will be the competitive, the competitors. If your closest competitor are doing it and you are not, I think you are out of the game. And I think this is where I'll see that it is companies driving each other, organizations driving each other, right? That will spur the sustainability journey. And importantly, I'll say one of the driver is probably a key driver is really the leadership. When I talk about leadership, I'm talking about the boss, right? Because as all of us know, the CEO do set direction, set the pace, and what to focus on, right? So the leader will be an important part of the ecosystem.
okay, so I think Charles has the further comments on this. Let me take a look. Swee-Hing, are you able to see it?
Yeah.
Charles' further comments? Around the same time as 1985 ozone layer discovery research is conducted. Yeah.
Right. No, thanks for the comment. There's always this kind of effects, right? And that's where one part of it is that businesses are not taking too much of consideration into the environment, right? Into their factors. And this in my mind is part of our collective business mindset, which is about making profit, growing, making profit, and then not thinking too much about the impacts of our output and the effects on the environment, right? The impacts on the environment. Yeah.
So there is a question from Margie. Oops.
Yeah, I fully agree. March says, I think appealing to emotions is important, advocating for sustainability, how to make people genuinely care. Right. So fully agree with you. And until we touch the heart, right? Then change can happen, right? I would think that people are touched in different ways. So it is not one way. Even talking about touching heart, right? I think it is different ways. So, but the idea of bringing the sustainability to home, right? Bringing the sustainability to make it relevant to oneself is probably something that everyone can think of, right? In other words, personalizing sustainability, right? Making it personal is probably a way to help a person to have a change in the mindset.
Mindset is also very important besides changing their heart. So there is a question from Charles.
Yeah.
There is a business case though. A 2023 Harvard Business Review analysis found that companies with higher sustainability performance outperformed their peers by 4.8% annually over a 10-year period. Thank you, Charles, for such a positive message.
This is encouraging, right? Yeah. But certainly for long-term profitability, sustainability, sustainable organization. For one to be sustainable, I think that the sustainability measures and being a sustainable organization is important, right? Yeah. yeah, and thanks for this report that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
It kind of become an encouragement to many organizations.
Yeah, thank you, Charles, for the question, and Margie as well. I understand that, Swee Heng, what is the next step for leaders and coaches?
Right. I'm in charge of the academy, right? The Shared Leadership Academy, and one of the things we want to do really is to help leaders and coaches be more prepared, more equipped, right, to coach others, to coach other teams, right? Even a leader, for example, could be a business leader, could be a sustainability leader, to be able to work on sustainability issues. So we have a new program called the Sustainability Coach Certification Program, right? You don't need to be a coach to enroll to participate in this, but certainly, and of course, during the program, you might learn some coaching skills, but not all. But most important is really focusing on what matters, right? How to help others, how to help teams to embrace sustainability, creating a integrated vision, gain competitive advantage, and so on, right? So this program is launching on 14th of May. So for those who are keen, right, you can just contact me, or I got my contact details at the beginning, right? Yeah, thanks for
Okay.
asking the question, Rita.
Thank you, Swee Heng. So it's towards the end of our session. Any closing remarks for us?
It is a journey. It is a journey worth taking. It is no longer about performance and people. For those who are in the business and organizations, like what I was previously, right? I was just focusing on 2 P's. But today, been knowing all these things, and being touched by the heart, I think the next P is even more important, right? That is a planet, right? So there's performance, people, and planet. And without the livable planet, the first 2 P doesn't matter.
Thank you, Swee Heng. Remember these 3 P, performance, people, and planet. Okay, so thanks, Swee Heng, again for the wonderful session, and we'll continue with our series of sustainability in business. And the next session will be the week after. That is the third Wednesday of the month. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.